It hit me the other day, something really fundamental about why so many of us struggle with money, or at least with building real, lasting wealth. And it's not about a lack of intelligence, or even a lack of opportunity for many. It's something deeper, something wired into us. The title we landed on, Your Brain Impoverishes You, sounds harsh, but the more I thought about it, the more it resonated as a stark truth. I started looking at common financial advice, market behaviors, and even my own past reactions to money. There's this concept called loss aversion. You've probably heard of it. In simple terms, it means that as humans, we feel the pain of a loss about twice as powerfully as we feel the pleasure of an equivalent gain. So, losing $100 feels way worse than gaining $100, or even $150 feels good. And that's not just a quirk. It's a powerful, evolutionarily programmed instinct. Think about our ancestors. For them, losing a vital food source, or shelter, or a member of the tribe could mean death. Finding an extra berry or a slightly better cave was nice, but not as critical as avoiding a catastrophic loss. So, our brains got really good at spotting and avoiding potential losses. That's a survival mechanism. But here's where it gets tricky. That same ancient wiring, so brilliant for keeping us alive on the savannah, is a massive saboteur in the modern world of finance. The stock market isn't a saber-toothed tiger, and a temporary dip in your portfolio isn't the same as losing your only source of food for the winter. Yet, our brain often reacts as if it is. This is where the impoverishing part comes in, and it's not always dramatic, like panic selling during a crash. It's often a slow, insidious process, driven by what our brain thinks is a safe, rational choice. One of the first things that clicked for me was how this obsession with avoiding any hint of loss leads us to seek safety above all else. We gravitate towards savings accounts with pitiful interest rates or keep too much cash under the mattress. Metaphorically speaking, it feels safe because the number doesn't go down or goes up very. But here's the gut punch. In a world with inflation, this safety is an illusion. Inflation is like a slow, invisible leak in your financial tire. If your money isn't growing at a rate faster than inflation, you are actively, demonstrably losing purchasing power every single day. That $10,000 you kept safe for 5 years might still be $10,000. But it buys significantly less than it did 5 years ago. Your brain, by seeking to avoid the feeling of loss, has steered you directly into a guaranteed real loss of value. It's a quiet kind of poverty, the kind that creeps up on you. How can you apply this understanding in life? Well, next time you look at your savings account, don't just see the balance. Actively compare its interest rate to the current inflation rate. If there's a gap where inflation is higher, recognize that this safe money is actually shrinking in real terms. This doesn't mean you should throw all caution to the wind, but it means reevaluating what safety truly means for your long-term financial health. It might mean considering investments that have some volatility, but also have the potential to outpace inflation and grow your wealth. Then I started thinking about how this aversion to loss manifests in smaller, everyday decisions. It's not just about avoiding big, scary investments. It's the accumulation of what I started calling small financial. Maybe you had an opportunity to invest in something with good potential, but it felt a bit risky, so you opted for the surer thing with lower returns. Or perhaps you've held on to an underperforming investment for too long, not because you believe in its future, but because selling it would mean realizing the loss, making it concrete, and your brain screams against that. Or maybe you avoid rebalancing your portfolio because it involves selling some winners and buying more of what recently underperformed. Each of these little safe decisions, these tiny acts of avoiding potential discomfort, they add up. They compound. It's like choosing a slightly less nutritious meal every single day. One meal won't hurt you, but over years, the cumulative effect on your health can be profound. Similarly, these small, safe financial choices, driven by loss aversion, collectively erode your potential for wealth. You're not just missing out on big wins. You're actively choosing a path of slower growth or even decay. And this leads to another crucial point. Our brain makes us define loss incorrectly in a financial context. We're so fixated on the nominal value, the dollar amount written on our statement. If that number goes down, even temporarily, alarm bells go off. But we're often blind to the invisible losses. The loss of purchasing power due to inflation, as I mentioned, is a big one. Another is the loss of future growth potential. Every time you let fear stop you from making a sound, growth-oriented investment, you haven't just avoided a potential downside. You've also forfeited the potential upside. And crucially, the power of compounding on that potential upside over years, or even decades. That unearned, uncompounded growth is a massive, silent loss that your brain rarely registers with the same urgency as a 5% dip in your stocks. Think about it this way. If you're 30 and you choose an ultra-conservative strategy that barely keeps pace with inflation versus a balanced growth strategy, the difference by the time you're 65 isn't just the slightly higher average return. It's the monumental difference created by decades of compounding on that higher return. The loss from playing it to safe isn't just the few percentage points of growth you missed each year. It's the vastly different financial reality you end up with. Your brain, in its attempt to shield you from the discomfort of short-term volatility, might be costing you a comfortable retirement or financial freedom. So how does this apply? When you're faced with an investment decision, try to consciously shift your definition of risk and loss. Don't just ask, what's the most I could lose on paper in the short term? Also ask, what's the potential long-term cost of not taking this opportunity? What am I losing to inflation by staying put? What future growth am I sacrificing? This reframing can help balance out the brain's natural bias. It's a constant internal battle. Our ancient brain, the limbic system, is screaming danger, threat, conserve when it sees market fluctuations or anything that smells like a potential loss. Our newer brain, the prefrontal cortex, might understand the logic of long-term investing and compound growth, but it's often drowned out by the emotional intensity of the older, more primitive part. The truly insidious part is that your brain isn't doing this maliciously. It genuinely believes it's protecting you. It's taking that old, reliable survival software, avoid all perceived threats, and running it in an environment it wasn't designed for. The stock market's ups and downs, the abstract numbers on a screen, they trigger the same ancient fear circuits as a predator in the bush. The safety it steers you towards feels like a haven, but in the financial world, that haven can be a mirage, slowly siphoning away your future prosperity. So, your brain impoverishes you isn't about blaming yourself or feeling stupid. It's about recognizing a deeply ingrained human tendency. It's about understanding that the default settings of our mind, while brilliant for ancestral survival, require a conscious override when it comes to building wealth in the 21st century. The awareness itself is the first, most powerful step. Once you see the mechanism, you can start to build strategies to counteract it. Perhaps by automating investments to take emotion out of the equation, or by setting clear long-term goals that help you, whether short-term anxieties or simply by pausing and questioning that initial gut reaction of fear when faced with a financial decision that involves any perceived risk. It's about learning to manage the saboteur within, so it doesn't unknowingly lead you down a path of quiet, comfortable, and entirely avoidable financial decline. So, now that we see this internal saboteur, what can we do about it in our everyday lives? In simple ways, it's about building new habits, small ones that can make a big difference. Consider your small, daily purchases. Instead of just asking if you can afford that coffee or impulse, but briefly ask yourself, is this the absolute best use of this money for my future self? This isn't about total deprivation, but about making more conscious choices. Even small amounts, consistently directed towards growth rather than fleeting wants, compound significantly over time. Another incredibly powerful tool is automation. Set up a small, automatic transfer to an investment account each payday, even if it's just a few dollars. The amount is less important initially than the habit. The beauty here is that it bypasses that emotional, loss-averse part of your brain for each transaction. The decision is made once, then it just happens. You're essentially putting your wealth building on autopilot. This directly counters the brain's tendency to play it safe by keeping money idle, by actively deploying it, even in small increments, towards potential growth. The benefit is consistent, less emotional investing. When you face a financial decision that triggers anxiety, like a market dip and the urge to sell, implement a personal pause button. Commit to waiting 24 hours before making any reactive moves. This cooling off period often allows your rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, to regain control from the more primitive, fear-driven limbic system. You'll make fewer panic-induced mistakes. The benefit is maintaining your long-term strategy, avoiding locking in temporary losses and allowing markets the chance to recover, which historically they have. Start reframing how you view savings. Money sitting in a low-interest account isn't just safe. If it's not outpacing inflation, it's safely losing value. Think of invested money, even with its fluctuations, as money actively working for you. This mental shift can make growth-oriented decisions feel less like a gamble and more like a necessity. The benefit is a more accurate perception of financial reality, motivating you to make your capital productive rather than letting it erode silently. Celebrate small financial braveries. Acknowledged when you stuck to your investment plan despite fear, or when you chose a growth option over an overly conservative one after careful thought. This positive reinforcement helps retrain your brain to associate these sound financial behaviors with positive outcomes, gradually weakening the grip of loss aversion. The long-term benefit is increased confidence in your financial decision-making and a stronger inclination towards wealth-building actions. These small, consistent actions chip away at the ingrained programming that can lead to impoverishment. They build new neural pathways, making sound financial habits more instinctual over time. It's a journey, not a destination. learning to navigate these internal biases, but every small step towards understanding and managing your brain's quirks is a step towards greater financial well-being. Thank you for joining me on this exploration today. I genuinely hope this perspective has been insightful. I encourage you to check out the description below. There's something there that you might find helpful. Until next time.